Antinatalist nihilists make an argument from syllogism. Their philosophy must be attacked as they wish to impose their will on others against their own will. Devoid of bodily autonomy, a special thanks to them for making the decision for me, everyone else, and my cat, as to whether or not we should exist based on a biased and oversimplified view of pain and pleasure. Anyone that far into the abyss should engage in hedonism. After all, they have nothing further to lose. Hi, welcome back everyone. Remember a while back when I did a video that I entitled Anti-Atheist Nihilists, MGTOW-hating Pro-Natalists. Wow. Apparently, this was nothing more than a reaction to something else. That particular reaction was a reaction to a group that call themselves anti-natalists. They are nihilistic anti-natalists. And the argument is rather peculiar. And it's something that I think needs to be deconstructed. There's plenty of fallacies that I've found within the argumentation, and I've noticed that people have been making counter-arguments to this specific individual, but to no avail, and it seems absolutely pointless because anyone who makes a legitimate claim or argument against his own is not taken into consideration, but is just called an idiot, or stupid, or retarded, or a dumb fuck, and then deleted. I will now show you about 5 minutes of what I'm talking about, and then we'll go over some of the arguments that I've seen.
Coke bottles and, I don't know, where's the beef commercials? Little bullshit. Just a bunch of little bullshit flew in, and now some bullshit flies back out in some sort of effort to convey some sort of understanding that the roller coaster of life is too rickety and nobody should be putting their kids on them ever again. We should just say, can't do that anymore. Too bad, too messy, too many too much collateral damage, not acceptable, blah blah blah. Just can't do it. Yeah, so it's sad, but you know, you'll get over it. Is the argument. You know, you can still live your little life, you know, have your little fun. You just don't do this I'm going to make somebody else do it thing. You just stop doing that. Not that big a deal. If life is so wonderful, you should be able to do it without having kids. I mean, that should be an easy enough argument to make, right? If you're going to make the argument that life's worth living, then why don't you get to living it instead of making somebody else who has to live it? You know, why don't you prove it's worth living by actually living a life worth living instead of a life dependent on, you know, care and maintenance of, you know, whatever the next little piece. That kind of thing. There's lots of ways to argue this. So I'm going to do a few comments, and I just read some of them, just saying idiot, moron, retard, crazy fuck. I mean, it just, you know, it's just pretty dismal. And some of these themes are so simple. I've been over them so many times, and you're saying, how can people keep missing this? I mean, it's just too stupid. And then you have assholes like this, the nitpickers, the nitpicking, naysaying, backseat driving, saying they know everything about how to do everything. So Jerry Hall, who I block on my other channel, because he's an idiot. But anyway, so yes, I'll remember you as, oh, you were one of the fucking idiots. You said that you are a fighter, but important to choose your battles. Gee, but I couldn't figure that one out on my own. Oh, thank you for that. Well, I would have missed that totally if you didn't let me know that. Oh, I have to have a strategy? Oh. Alright, I think you are just wasting your time. Why the fuck would I care what you think? I mean, that didn't mean anything. Because your reasoning is going to be so bad that it won't mean anything. So, you know, why would I, on the face of it, give a shit what you think? All that will happen is you keep waiting until you die. Well, that's not really what I'm doing, so... and as the comments illustrate, I mean, you do have to say this more than one way for some people to get what the hell you're saying. They interpret things so wrong. You're an example. I mean, I think on the Draft Physics channel, you're a pretty big fucking idiot in terms of you not following along at all. Anyway, then you don't whine anymore, so that's all. So, you know, he says that's all he's calling it, is whining. And then he'll, like the typical hypocritical, duplicitous, nitpicking asshole, he'll say exactly the opposite thing. You know, and then say, look, I'm logical. Listen to me. Well, no, you're not very logical. Life will continue. So that's your opinion. Okay, fine. You say so. It's indestructible. Nothing could ever change. I mean, you know, I could have taken bets, you know, in like 1970 about Trump and the biosphere will replace you. and you'll do it quickly. So you're not going to be spared. You're not sparing conscious beings any grief by killing yourself. It really just doesn't work, because whatever you were going to consume, some new piece of biology is going to consume. The sun will still shine on it like a solar panel. It'll just stick a new solar panel in. Like the solar panel dies, all the other solar panels keep making solar panels. So they'll just fill in the blank where your solar panel was with another solar panel. Another victim is going to be put through the dream sequence of horseshit that we live through. And it's probably, like I said, not going to be a better story. It's going to be even a worse story than your story. So you're causing the writing of a book that's even worse than the book you're burning, kind of thing.
So wasn't that interesting? Basically, the juxtaposition of this argument is that because life is full of pain, that it would be better without people. This guy has gone into explanations about nuking the entire planet, eradicating it entirely devoid of life. Because there is no God, because the universe doesn't care about you, that there is no intrinsic value to life, and that because life equates to pain and suffering, therefore it would be better without the presence of life to interpret said pain and suffering. That is a very interesting claim indeed. The claim goes into saying that people should not reproduce. Now, I would neither consider myself a pro-natalist or an anti-natalist. I think that has something to do with an individual choice. That falls in the line of bodily autonomy. I think if somebody views the family life as quality living, that's what they should do. If somebody thinks that hedonism is quality living, then that's what they should do. Finding the meaning and qualities in life are up to the individual. This absolutely has to do with a macro and micro level of looking at the world. For instance, on a macro level, through the eyes of the universe, if we were to give the universe personification, we don't matter. But on a micro scale, to us, through our little narrow lens, things matter to us as a biological organism. These little chemical interactions in our brain make things matter to us. Yes, eventually, whether we like it or not, the human race will eventually come to an end. That's going to happen. That is reality. And it can't be escaped. Eventually, the universe will reach a point in which it can no longer sustain life. Does that make the entirety of human existence completely irrelevant and null and void because of the experience of pain? I think that anyone who says yes and makes that argument that people should not reproduce because life is nothing but pain is very deluded, for one, because obviously we know that, and he does make this argument, that we have the counter comparison, that we know that there's the positive, that there is pleasure as well as pain. But the immediate thought process that went through my mind is that I don't know that you can put life into two very extreme categories and just simplistically leave it there. This is oversimplification. Life is more complicated than just pain and pleasure, and that's it. There's a huge spectrum between those two things. There's varying degrees and levels of pain and pleasure. For instance, he talks about comparing apples and oranges quite a lot. Well, he's comparing pain and pleasure to each other. I think that's comparing apples and oranges. I can by no means compare the level of pain that I felt, the emotional pain that was so dramatic to me, that it actually changed the way that I think. It changed my perspective. I'm still me, but there's bits and pieces missing when my brother died. I have also had experiences in life that are so pleasurable that they've changed my perspective, changed the way that I've looked at the world. But I cannot take that pain that I felt and come anywhere near to comparing it to the pleasure that I felt. It just can't be done. It's a very narrow-minded view to just put everything in life into that kind of categorization. That there's only pain and there's only pleasure. And since pain is bad, we shouldn't exist. Well, what about the pleasure? Well, that doesn't matter because there will be no one there to exist to experience the pleasure, but the bad part has been eradicated. You know, that is an extremely authoritarian perspective to push upon the entirety of the world. He does go into making arguments where he talks about cats, and I thought to myself, how on earth do you possibly know what the consciousness of a cat is like? He dares to say animals don't have a brain. Well, actually, that's false. They do have a brain. We can dissect them and we can take it out and we can actually look at it. We can even do like we do with humans and attach electrodes and watch for the chemical neuro responses in the brain, just like we do it with people. It's called neurology. Yes, they do have a brain. The question is, what level of consciousness or awareness do they have? I don't think that you can speak on behalf of the animal kingdom and say, well, I think it may be better for you to never exist than to exist with this minimal amount of pleasure. But, I mean, yes, you do get that with existence, but without existence, you would never experience the great worldwide of pain. Do not presume that you can make this decision for another person, is my argument to them, to this person, to people who follow this philosophy. That is my decision to make. It's my decision to make. To me, life was worth it. The pain that I have to endure through life is worth the outcome of the pleasurable experiences I have obtained. Matt Dillahunty has made some similar arguments. I am not going to argue what Matt Dillahunty made, even though he made a very, very strong argument. Because that's Matt Dillahunty's argument, not mine. But once I found out that this form of nihilist exists, I thought to myself, this guy has to be, like, the ideology has to be attacked. It has to. It's dogmatic in principle. And that if you follow it to its leading conclusion, what you're looking at essentially is the formation of a cult. Do you not feel respected? Do you feel down and out? Do people make fun and bully you? Do you feel like you don't fit in? Is the world just a piece of shit to you and you can't find any joy or happiness in it? Well, don't worry. There's a group of people that are willing to accept you. And then where's the cyanide Kool-Aid? I mean, come on. This is a cult. This is cultish mentality. I'm sorry, but you just do not have the right to make the proclamation on my behalf of whether or not I am willing to endure pain to... I mean, yes, it is inevitable. I'm going to die and none of it really matters. But it matters to me the experiences that I have in life. I'd say that somebody this far down the nihilistic rabbit hole, as you saw in the posts that I made, should engage in hedonism at this point. You're so far into the abyss. What do you care if you are addicted to heroin at this point or not? It might even change your perspective on life. Why is it so addictive? Maybe you should find out. Maybe you should try some LSD. Experience a different state of mind. Because right now is the only time that you can. Because as we both know as nihilists, as atheists, as anti-theists, there's nothing after death. This is the one shot you got. Why don't you go fuck a dude? See if you like it. This is the one shot to experience not only just pleasure, but pain. Matt Dillahunty made a very, very good argument that spoke volumes to me as a person who has bipolar type 2. I have a lot of depression that I experience. He brought up in there that people who are severely depressed, they feel nothing. And that sense of nothing that encompasses you, you will cause or inflict pain upon yourself in order to feel something at all, because pain is better than nothing. That's a feeling I know all too well. And you're not thinking rationally in that moment. I just have to let you know that is not a rational position to take. There's nothing rational about it. I believe that's why they call it a mood disorder. It's not mood functioning. It's disorder. It's not functioning. Anyway, I take great amounts of insight from my depression. I take great amounts of inspiration from my depression. But depression aside, negative things that have happened in my life have taught me a great deal about life. And you could make the argument that it's irrelevant because I will eventually die. That's true. But to say that human life should not exist because of this pain and suffering, that's not up for you to decide. That's up for me to decide whether it's worth it or not. And to me, it's worth it. And to many other human beings, it's worth it. So you can make the argument, I suppose, all you want, but that doesn't mean that it is a viable one. Here is an interesting anecdote. Well, I guess it's not an anecdote, it's a philosophical quandary. There's a bear that's hunting for food to feed its cubs. There's let's say a jaguar or a leopard, something. Big cat that's trying to look for food to feed its cubs. The bear and the cat, they meet each other. Predator, prey, prey, predator. Tell me, each one must consume resources to survive. Each one perceives each other as resources, as necessary to survive and for their family, their cubs, to survive. This is not a design that was made by any living entity. This is just how nature works. It's cruel, it's barbaric, it's fucked up. But why? Tell me, in the situation between the bear and the tiger, lion, whatever it is, these two animals, who is the protagonist and who is the antagonist? I don't think there is either one in that situation. I don't think either one is a protagonist and either one is an antagonist. I think it is life perpetuating the way that it does. And at some point, you have to realize the only thing in there interpreting this as injustice, inequality, or whatever, pain, is a neurochemical response in your brain. That's it. So experience it while you can. So I suppose I'm a little bit on a different side of existentialism because I accept the darkness of life. I accept this. I'm like, yes, the world is cruel, it's dark, it's cold, it's bleak at times, but, the sex was great. And no, I am not going to stop eating animals just because it might potentially cause them pain. Pain is a part of life. You have to learn to deal with that. It's a part of life, and so is pleasure. Partake in a little bit of that pleasure, and maybe you might understand why some people are willing to endure the pain. And here's another thing. How on earth can you sit there and make this philosophical argument that pain is not worth life? I'm not even going to talk about the foregoing of the pleasure. Do you think that the mental turmoil that you experience is anywhere near comparable to somebody who is terminally ill? Do you think that that is sufficient grounds to stand on, that you can take that high ground to say that because you have to understand there's a level of subjectivity to this? That is a subjective thing to say because there is pain in life. The pain is inevitable. Life should not exist. That's your opinion. It's your opinion. I'm just saying. I look forward to looking through some arguments that this person makes. He is the first of his kind I have personally met or seen an argument from on this level. There are actually arguments that he does make in the lines of philosophy that I do agree with. But this antinatalist I view is very strange. I don't think you're going to get the entirety of the human species to stop procreating. It's not going to happen. I think if somebody wants to have the choice to have a child, they should do it. And if they don't, they shouldn't. I am neither dogmatically inclined towards antinatalism, nor am I dogmatically inclined towards pronatalism. It's an individual choice. I, too, like Matt Dillahunty, have a problem with the lack of bodily autonomy. And I also have a problem with the persuasion on someone's own perception of the reality before them. Don't tell me the pain isn't worth it, and that without existence it would be better, even though I'd never experience pleasure. Again, that's for me to decide, not you. That's your opinion. I do support your choice and not reproducing, because ultimately I believe in choices, and not one's ability to impose one's will on others against their own will. I will leave a link to his video in the description below. I will leave a link to Matt Dillahunty's video in the description below if you would like to see his response. He called it, rightfully so, a syllogism. There's some other fallacies in there other than just syllogism.